and in attendance was a former vice president of one of the major 5 banks here in the provinces. And they were talking about this, and the VP, the retired VP, sat there with a stunned look on his face and said, you know, I knew there was something, I just couldn't figure it out. So even the vice presidents are not in on this.
Right.
It takes top CEOs, presidents, and literally the global elite. And yes, they have access to their treasury account that looks pretty much just like a credit card, and they can walk into Sears and put down this card and get their lawnmower, as if they do their own shopping, eh? But anyway,
right.
So put down this card, and that card accesses their treasury account, which we have not been able to do yet, but we can circuitously. In other words, by that, when I say we haven't been able to do it, I mean we haven't gotten the card. But it's there, we know, but so far where we've arrived is that we simply hand out the correct forms, and then, you know, it's just a question of time before we get reimbursed.
Okay. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but again, I just want to clarify the forms and the specific that you're talking about right now. That is only something that is applying to people within North America. Is that correct?
No. What I'm saying is these are tax forms. Now, what the people in Europe can do, if they're so inclined, is to do a little digging and find out which of their tax forms correspond with the same IRS tax forms. And when you grasp the purpose of each of them, then it's probably not so hard to find. However, I will say this, that my friend in England is having a heck of a time trying to match the British tax forms with the IRS forms.
Uh-huh.
Even we here in Canada, I don't mean I'm in Canada, but I mean
sure.
the Canada forms.
Sure.
We're having a little trouble with that too. We're missing a couple. So what my friend in England said is it might just behoove everybody. Now imagine how bogged down the IRS is going to get. It might behoove all of us to get what's called employment identification numbers and international tax identification numbers, which come from the IRS. They're international, which means then you can dabble with the IRS. Now, this friend I just mentioned to you, I talked to her this morning, I said, you know, the joke is they're going to have to hire more IRS agents in order to deal with us. And I said, but they're sure not going to tell us. And she said, oh, yes, they do tell us. It's on the news that they've had to hire more IRS agents. And I said, well, I'm surprised they would tell us. And they said, well, they said that they've hired more because they're cracking down on us. And I said, no, that's not true. They're hiring more because we are now demanding reimbursement. We're demanding checks. And they had to hire people in order to get this handled.
Right.
This is good news. And, of course, she saw it as bad news, right?
That's interesting.
So things are looking up. We've got more IRS agents. Now, I know most people are going to hear that as, oh, no, now they're really going to come after us. No, that's not true. They've got more agents to do our work that we're demanding of them.
Absolutely fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's talk about that again, or backtrack yet a little bit again and talk about that they're setting up a corporation, correct, alongside when you're registering your child. Is that correct?
Right. So they set up a corporation, which, of course, they can charge now, right? Because what happened was the mom turned over legal title. Keep in mind, there's equitable title and legal title. So they turned over legal title to the child, to the state, or in this case, the province, or whatever you call wherever it is you registered birth. So now they have legal title to that entity. And what they try and do is convince us that that entity is a man. And it isn't.
Right.
A piece of paper couldn't be a man. A name can't be a man. A picture can't be a man, right?
Yes.
Only men can be men and women can be women. But so inevitably, you hand the cop your driver's license and they say, is this you? Well, what a moronic question. Of course it's not I. It's a picture. You're looking at me here.
It's a representation of yourself, isn't it?
There you go, yeah. And they try and trick us into saying that we are a name. For example, you go into court and they call the name, Sam Smith, and this guy stands up and the judge says, what's your name? And he says, Sam Smith. bingo, you just contracted in to being the one that got charged, when in fact it wasn't the man who got charged, it was the name that got charged, because the name is the name of a corporation. Now, if Sam Smith is smart, he'll simply say, I'm here about that matter. Well, who are you? Well, I'm the authorized representative of the name of the corporation you just called. In other words, make the distinction, because what they do right from the get-go is they try and make us believe that we are that name. And when that name gets charged, whether it's a traffic ticket or whatever, that we're it. We're not it. But we can choose to be surety. Now, for a long time, we were avoiding suretyship, simply saying, I went to court one time, I said, but that name is not I. Well, they locked me up for that, so I didn't do that again. But what I should have said, of course, is, I'm the authorized representative. You know, what's the charge? Here, I'll set it off for you. What's the problem? What's it going to take? But so they get very upset when you try and deny suretyship. Well, now what we do is we take on suretyship. So instead of saying, nope, that's not me, we now say, sure, here, I'll sign for it. What do you want? Go ahead, tell me. How much? I'll sign for it. Right here. I'm not frightened of suretyship anymore. Where we used to be, we were saying, well, if we admit to being the name, then they'll come after us. Well, no, we make it clear that we're not the name and that we are willing to handle the charges. But first show me the charges, and they tend never to do that. But that's another thing. So getting back to the corporation, they created the corporation for the purpose of charging. Simple as that. In order for them to create debt on the books, so that we will pay their debt. But it's their debt, not ours. Same as credit card. I get crazy when people say, oh, I've got so much credit card debt. You know, I said, well, no, you don't. The credit card company has the debt. Now, you want to set it off for them, or are you going to slave labor for them?
Yes. I mean, it's incredible, the system that has been set up here and how it's being used. And I even want to go back to the idea of why the fact that this is something called, we can call it Admiralty commercial law, or some have referred to it actually as the law of the water. And even in regards to how we the names and the etymology that we use, you just mentioned suretyship, for instance. We're talking about these kind of it's like it's a law of the water, right? The commercial law has to do with waters and commerce in regards to how ships were trading in way back when, many hundreds of years ago. Is there any connection at all there, do you think?
Oh, you're absolutely accurate. And my favorite example, of course, is the word birth.
Yes.
Ships are birthed.
Yes.
Babies are born, but they call it birth. I mean, if that's not right from the get-go, Talk about trying to make us or put us into Admiralty maritime law. You're right. I mean, and it never ends. I mean, the number of words that, well, you just picked on suretyship, yeah. It's endless. The number, of course, person is my favorite, but, and includes. The word includes. Okay, for example, it took me years. You'd think I would have done this, but only about in the past year I looked up the word Canada. Mm-hmm. You'd think I would have done this sooner, but anyway, I looked up the word Canada, and what it said was, first of all, it said, for greater understanding. Well, doesn't that immediately make you think, well, where's the other understanding? Like, did you write something before this, so what do you mean by for greater understanding? Greater than what? Anyway, so you keep reading, and it says, Canada includes the inland waters and the territorial seas. Well, it just so happens that the word includes means.
What?
It doesn't mean, for example, if you and I have a party and we say, well, let's have a party and let's include the neighbors. That means you and I have some friends here and also the neighbors, right? Mm-hmm. What they mean when they say let's have a party and that includes the neighbors, it means only the neighbors. So when they say Canada includes the inland waters and the territorial seas, it means Canada means only water.
Really?
There is no land called Canada.
Huh.
It's only water. So when people say, were you born in Canada? I say, do I look as if I have fins and gills? No.
Right.
Born on the land.
Yes.